Hello and welcome to the EO Roundtable series where we speak to optics experts about trends that are impacting our industry and beyond. I'm your host, Scott Bass, and today's topic is talent in the optics industry. Every industry has their share of recruitment and retention challenges. The reality is that it's typically a candidate-driven market in our industry, which means companies need to be creative about attracting and retaining top technical talent. We gathered some of our own Edmund Optics technical talent who have certainly dealt with their fair share of hiring, mentoring, and motivating teams. During this first part, we will be discussing talent shortages and skills gaps, the hiring process, attracting and finding employees, and company culture. So we're going to get started with the first question. Quite simply, do you guys feel that there is a technical talent shortage out there?
I'll take that. Yeah, I definitely think there is. Our industry has enjoyed a lot of growth recently, right? So we're looking to expand and hire a lot of additional talent. That's also true for a lot of our peers within the industry. So we're all looking for the same kind of folks at the same time. And I might spend 3, 4, sometimes 6 months trying to find the right candidate before I fulfill it. And some of the things that we have open. So I definitely say that there is a shortage.
Good. You know, macroeconomically, you have a 9-year bull market where technology has been way out in front of the rest of the industry, and I think something like 3.9% unemployment, and so we see that. And there's also the geographical challenges that you have. You know, if you're a technology company in the middle of the country, it's certainly going to be hard to recruit out of some of the coastal regions, and luckily we are in a coastal region, but even in one of the colder climates, that tends to be a little bit of a headwind at times, and there's also the experience level, and so you know, there's the more and more experienced staff that you require, that tends to complicate the problem. There's luckily quite a bit of talent coming out of the universities, but naturally you need to train those people up before they're accretive to the overall business plan that you may have. I would say that we kind of know where to look, and it becomes a question of batting average after that. And
well, where are you finding them at Edmund Optics? You mentioned university and...
Sure, so historically the couple schools that we focused on have been University of Arizona and University of Rochester, but in the last 5 to 10 years we really have branched out, and we've had folks join us from local universities like Rowan and Rutgers, and just sort of happenstance encounters through universities like Rice or Central Florida, where we've had some relationship. But it's really, we're kind of taking on all comers. I just interviewed somebody yesterday who's a friend of a friend from Ireland, right? And he seems like he's got some of the chemical and materials background that we may be looking for. And so we're kind of just wherever we can find people right now, we're chasing them down. But I would say we're up in our game in Europe a bit by increasing our project management presence, and we're starting to actually, I'll say, visit those universities. And so I'd say Harriet Watt up in Edinburgh, and Southampton, University of Southampton in the UK, is a couple that we've looked at, and we're regionally kind of close to Karlsruhe University in Germany. And so some of those more, the older optical industry areas throughout the world are areas that we're starting to focus on beyond just the United States.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's definitely a technical shortage. I don't think that it's unique to optics. To Joel's point, I think the tech industry in general has been growing, not just the optics industry, and we're having the same trouble that other high-tech places are, we just need a larger volume in the talent pipeline, not just in university, but starting in the, even K through 12, starting to get people interested in, and students interested in math and science and things like that. So I think optics is suffering from a lot of the same problems that a lot of the other industries, high-tech industries are. Kind of the buzzword is the technical skills gap. Who are a lot of the people that you see that have been around in the industry for 30, 40 years that have this, innate knowledge of optics manufacturing and optics technician skills, and the next generation isn't backfilling a lot of people that are retiring. You had Kodak back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s employing all of these people in optics manufacturing, and there hasn't, I don't think, been that replacement that's happened in the newer generation. So it's definitely becoming a problem. I think a lot of companies are starting to address it, but you know, I think that's real. I think it's larger than just the optics industry, but we certainly suffer from the same issues.
I mean, how many people actually knew optics was a field before they actually went into it?
Yeah, right.
I sure did.
College,
I didn't.
right?
No. No, I think most people accidentally ended up in optics or
That's right.
heard something or came in from the side from physics or
I
electrical.
was going for aerospace engineering. and
I was in chemistry.
I was undecided. Just happened to be at Arizona.
I happened to be at Rochester, yeah, same thing. And yeah.
On that note, are there a lot of engineer, may not be an optical engineer, but are there a lot of transferable skills
Absolutely.
in other?
Oh,
Absolutely.
Right,
yeah.
so it's not, you don't have to just look within that
we
pool
employ
of
physics
sure, okay.
majors all the time.
Mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, chemical engineers, the list goes on and on. And not only do you have to have a 4-year degree or a master's, I mean, even technical fields like machining or other manufacturing trades, those are also in short supply. And we're trying to work on things like apprenticeship to try to build that up from the inside. But again, there's still that skills gap, even at those lower levels. It's still
Probably more severe there.
I think it's
actually,
even
on
worse.
the-
Yeah,
on
I
the
think
basic
you're
level.
So how much of it is it truly a skills gap versus do companies have to adjust and their expectations have to change, or are companies being too critical, expecting this needle in a haystack type candidate every time and just only accepting perfection? I mean, where?
Well, I think it's not just about the technical expertise as much as it is about the candidate themselves, the personality,
Soft
that
skills.
certainly
person,
here at
that
EO.
culture,
Yeah, very much so.
and ensuring that they're going to fit within the culture of the actual company. And we've had a lot of success hiring highly intelligent people and teaching them the optics part of it. So when you're looking for that candidate that you're going to invest in, that you're going to hope that is going to help you grow over the next 5 or 10 years or so, and not be a revolving door.
Right.
You want to make sure that your selection process is such that that you attract that type of person, that personality. It's gonna work for your corporate environment.
I think we often actually go the opposite way that the trend is. Right now, the trend is people going shorter and shorter periods of time at the same company, moving on to move up and things like that. Companies looking at employees more and more like numbers to just fill out the, more cogs in the machine, right? Whereas we actually spend an awful lot of effort finding people that are good culture fit and then investing in the person rather than just in the business. And I think that's kind of counter to the current culture right now to a large extent.
But to your point, I don't think companies are being crazy picky about you want to have a good fit for your company, but like Joel said about the unemployment rate being so low, I don't think there's tons of people running around with engineering degrees being unemployed because everyone wants a perfect candidate. I think people are just desperate to get people in the door and train them in-house. If you see a highly employable candidate in terms of soft skills, we can teach them the tech. So I think it's just a numbers, to some extent, a numbers game, and there's more and more tech fields being created, which is creating more need, and we're not seeing a growing, talent base.
So would you say, in your experience during your hiring process for your teams, are you having a hard time attracting the candidates you want? Have you had a lot of candidates turn down offers, or for the most part, when you find someone you like and they're accepting the offer? I'm just trying to get a feel for the challenges of attracting top talent. If we
I would
face
say
that.
more often than not, when we find a candidate that we really want to employ, we tend to be successful. But really finding those people and getting the all the check boxes to match on cultural and skills and all of those things do tend to be the challenge. And I think we've had a few positions open, and we've probably on-site interviewed nearly a dozen candidates, and it just doesn't quite break that threshold. But really, Edmund and a lot of successful companies do think about kind of the long game, right?
Right.
And so I'm sure we'll probably touch on retention here at some point, but really that's what we have in mind is we bring someone in and we kind of assess the risk of flight over time, because we are likely going to sink a lot into that person to train them, because if you imagine in thin films, for instance, if there is a thin film degree out there, I'm not aware of it, but I know there's some professors that teach some thin film classes, but you often have to get a materials or physics or optics person and then have an 18-month apprenticeship kind of cycle where they're running machines and learning the design side and learning all the vacuum science and stoichiometries and all those types of things that you have to do to actually successfully create a thin film. And the worst thing you can do is train that person and then they go and take off. And so we look for is that person, do they have local roots? Do they really value some of the things that we value in terms of partnership with your company and longevity in a company and really kind of building something for the long term versus someone who may have more rapid career aspirations, I'll say, and not necessarily that interested in building their own skill set. And so
I think it also depends on the type of position you're trying to fulfill. If it's an entry-level position, then I think we're getting in candidates, and we're able to select good candidates from the schools that we have strong relationships with. But if you're looking for someone who has a lot of experience in a specific area,
That's
right. That's where it's hard. I mean, those people are already rare, right? They don't really exist out there. You're looking for experience, so we're talking about the folks that graduated maybe 10, 15 years ago, and those pool of graduates were even a lot smaller back then. But the expertise has grown. The need for those expertise have grown, and if you're looking for an experienced person to start that off, that's when it becomes really hard and competitive.
Optics is a relatively small industry too. It's not like aerospace, right? Or it's not like software or computer science or something like that. And so we already have kind of a small pool to choose from. Which
And
compounds
optics
the issue.
is enabling technology, and it's in so many other industries. So it's not just employing people at a company like Edmund Optics where it's very focused specifically on optics, but you have optics in companies that aren't optics companies. They
Sure,
just
a lot
have
of
it.
the Silicon Valley
a lot
companies.
We
Right.
talk to those all the time.
Right, so a lot of
We call
your talent is going
Ask them.
in optics, but into different companies within optics. And you mentioned Silicon Valley. I mean, sometimes it's hard to compete when you've got the more Hollywood appeal of moving to California and living in the Bay Area, and sometimes entry-level candidates see the salary numbers that you can make, but don't take into account cost of living differences, and so sometimes you have this. It's harder to, I think a more experienced candidate understands those trade-offs a little better, where sometimes with entry level it's not as apparent how important some of those aspects of your job are.
What is important to, I guess it's two different conversations, what's important to a candidate, both the entry level and the more experienced? I mean, you guys are all experienced engineers. What's important to you? It sounds like, we fortunately don't have to struggle too much to attract top talent here, but why is that? I'm trying to just dive in deep to share some of the insights to our viewers in terms of how to best attract some of the top talent out
A lot of the entry-level candidates want some of the intangibles. They want to, know that maybe they can take advantage of working from home. What kind of environment is the company? Are they going to have friends inside of the company? That seems to be really important. You spend the majority of your waking life going to work. You're going to want to like the people that you work with, know that they have common interests, and if you want to go out and do something, that there's someone within the company who is available to go out and do it with you. And then the environment is such that you feel comfortable asking a coworker to come and do something with you.
I think one of my big frustrations is kind of a hot button topic, but it's immigration, right? Being a company that works on ITAR projects, it's nice when we can have people that at least have green cards, but that process of maybe you find some very attractive person that has just the skill set you're looking for, maybe some niche project that's going to be hard to fill. You finally find that person, but they're from overseas, and it's going to be 2, 3, 4 years to get the green card if they can even get it. That's a huge investment that you've got to be willing to put into that person for a maybe. So shortening up that process, I think, would be helpful for all of our industry all around.
Yeah, I think with entry level, sometimes I try and tell when I'm talking to students that are job searching. I don't think when I was a student coming out that I realized how important it was that I liked my coworkers, that I liked my boss, that I went home at a reasonable time every day, that I had reasonable expectations about my workload. I get a lot of entry-level candidates coming in and they want to see what's the salary, and they want to know what's the project I'll be working on, which those things are important. You want to feel like you're being paid appropriately for the work you're doing. You want to work on things that are exciting. But I think having now, worked in the industry, I understand the value, like Ken said, of enjoying the time you spend with your coworkers. You are spending as much time with your coworkers than any significant other or family member that you have back at home. So I think sometimes an experienced candidate is going to have a little more perspective in terms of what they want out of their job and what they want their day-to-day to look like and the work environment to look like, because you can work in a startup where you have insane hours and you're really high stakes and emergency mode a lot of times, and you can have a more collaborative and R&D type environment within a large corporation where maybe things are still, you want to work fast and stuff, but it's not you're not in failure of your personal business closing down type of things.
Something else that seems to resonate with entry-level staff that we bring on is we tend to help them figure out what they want to do and what they're good at. And so there's a lot of folks that get an engineering degree that don't necessarily want to be in a dark lab, or be in front of a computer all the time. And some people actually change, over time. I think we've all had different jobs throughout the course of our career, but oftentimes in the entry-level interview, we actually have a structured program where we share with them, we know you don't quite know what you want to do in your career. And so what we're going to do for the first year is try you in a few different areas and expose you to a few different areas of the business, and things like operations or project management,
marketing,
and actually get a taste of what a career could be in a few different areas. And so when we're bringing in entry-level staff, we tend to just look for the intangibles and some of the base level aptitudes and competencies that we want to have in staff, and then help them find their way. Because the nice thing is we're a growing company, so we have a bunch of areas of opportunity and areas where we need help. And so we're kind of indifferent where they end up, just as long as we eventually get all our needs met. And so, but that seems to really, I see a lot of eyes kind of light up, when we bring students in and share that with them. And they're like, oh, that's great, because I don't have any idea what I want to do.
A lot of them don't realize with their optics degree or even physics degree what other kind of adjacent things they could still do with that, what other functional departments they can even still work in, whether it be sales or marketing or like you said, logistics, supply chain. We employ optical engineers in all of those areas. I don't think it's always apparent to them that they're not pigeonholed to just being behind a computer and designing a lens.
I like to advocate to people that an engineering degree, regardless of its optics or another technical field, it teaches you critical thinking skills, it teaches you reasoning and logic, and those things can be applied in any job. So I'm always just a huge advocate in general for any type of engineering degree, because I think those skill sets are life skill sets. They're not specific to optics or anything like that. So if you...
Are you biased, Katie?
A little bit.
Would you say there are, untapped pools of talent out there, and if so, where are they?
Well, certainly with some of the industry turnover, that's occurring. I think we have some significant customers in some of the historically more automotive-focused areas of the country, and some of those operations have ebbed and flowed. We've seen automotive engineers end up in our industry at some of our customer sites, and so some of the old heavy industry areas of the country, we've seen some of those experienced engineers come in and teaching us things about like statistical process control and quality control and just true quality plans for, a startup would just have a ton to learn in an area like that from an old, industrial warhorse. And so it's kind of cool to see some of those guys come in and say what it was like to work on the, Thunderbirds and stuff like that from way back when.
Yeah, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions going on too, and so there's always people during those times that are, in flux, maybe don't want to make that particular change. So there's quite a bit of people in the market from those activities too.
And you're seeing obviously the huge movement around women's rights kind of at a larger society level, but especially also in the tech industry too, that there's plenty of studies that have shown you start actively recruiting out of untapped pools, whether it's out of immigration pools outside your country geographically, minorities within your industry, and women. It's just historically, I think optics in general has always sat about around 15-20% women, and those percentages change greatly within specific subsets of the optics industry. But I think every time you have a discussion about the talent pipeline or a lack of talent or things like that, you got to start a lot younger, starting to get people interested in math and science, and not just the guys playing with toys and cars and whatever, but letting everyone know that there's a space in optics and in science and engineering, because you've got to fill that. You've got to fill all these new markets that are coming out in tech with somebody. So
Gotta start the grade school level.
yeah, yeah, it's got to come from somewhere. So you got to start getting creative and encouraging that.
I know we're very active in our REACH program and going to grade schools and teaching them about optics. Like I said, I didn't know what optics was when I picked it as before I picked it as a major, before I went to the University of Rochester. Would have been awesome if someone came to my 6th grade class and told me about this and holography and laser systems, and might have gotten interested in it a lot sooner. So I think more companies need to start making those efforts, if they're not already, in doing that within our industry, so that we spur up that interest, because we're definitely going to need those future candidates. I mean, and we definitely need to make a concerted effort in doing it in all communities, so that we do grow that interest in a diverse way, so that we can have that diversity within the industry that we want to see years to come.
Yeah, you want thought diversity. It's important, especially in a technical community. You want to have different viewpoints. The worst thing you could have in a creative environment is everybody who has grown up with the same experiences and seen the same set of facts. That's not going to get you to your most creative or best solutions. So I think even thinking about it from advancing technology from that standpoint, like, you want to have a diverse pool of talent at your company, so you're getting different viewpoints.
Yeah, it's an imperative in R&D, right? 'Cause, I mean, it's no different from design. If you want to find that globally best solution, you kind of need to be
Gotta
testing
get out of
a lot
that
of
minimum
data.
valley.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so you got a drawing up on the board, and some people just see a completely different thing than others in the room, and
That's great. Yeah.
so you end up with a better solution.
But you can almost tell the economic climate by the way, by what the entry-level candidates kind of concentrate on. During the last recession, everyone was interested in how stable of a company you were.
Is my job
How
still going to
di-
be here in 5 years?
How diverse is your portfolio? How long have people around you been working at the company? And that was really critical. And even then, we saw a lot of folks, I think even out of fear, decide that, you know what, I'm not going to go into the job market. I'm going to go directly into grad school and get my higher degree. And then I'll try. And then we've had, for entry-level positions, a lot more masters and PhD students fighting for the same positions as bachelor folks during that time frame.
It's interesting, and conversely, when times are good, it's a lot of, okay, company, what can you do for me?
Right.
And, so they tend to be more selective. There's more suitors, and yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think the industry is starting to realize the importance of some of the perks and some things you mentioned earlier about working from home or having more flexible work hours, or am I going to have friends and peers and mentors at work. I think originally, I don't know, say maybe like 10 years ago, companies had this idea that of like the millennials, they want everything handed to them, or they're whiny, or whatever all of the horrible connotations was around that. But I think it was kind of the industry hadn't recognized yet that if you don't have people working for pensions, or there's not, a specific, specific economic incentive, that when unemployment is low, that you're going to have a lot of options. So expecting an entry-level candidate to stay with you long term, out of, perceived loyalty. Yeah, I like to be loyal to my company, but you can't expect blind loyalty as companies. So I think industries have started to recognize that they do have to offer. Candidates have options, so we need to make sure that we're responding to what they're interested in. I think that's more a function of the economy than the current generation being, more needy than the previous one, or having, wild expectations. I think that's just a function of we're not in this huge recession anymore, and they have options. So if I can make significant more money and better perks at a different company, why should I be holding back my career for that? So
and it's harder for companies to hide that too. I mean, with social media being what it is today, right?
Yeah, it's really easy to find this stuff out.
Places like Glassdoor, right, and everything. And not even just salary, but even the fun things that other companies do.
Sure, the
It
culture
gets
of the
around
place
fast,
and-
and so that now being a requirement for a lot of folks. And
Companies need to be proactive in sharing
That's right.
culture out there. If you have a good culture, you have to get it out there. You can't just hide it.
that's right.
Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the first part of our discussion on talent in the optics industry. Please leave us a comment to let us know what you think and to suggest other topics. Also, be sure to check out part 2 of this topic next, where we will discuss retention, internal versus external talent, and using independent contractors and consultants.